Hey, what is good, high performers and camp believers? Welcome to another episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. I am your esteemed host and high-level expert, Desi Abeda. So we took a couple weeks off, really in a lot of ways, because as your host, I'm always preaching to you like, hey, know your limits, know your body, push your limits, but try to find a nice balance in between what that feels like and what that is. And the past 2 weeks for me, that's exactly what I needed, because I just got back 2 weeks ago from a life-changing trip. I mean, I think, and I'm not over-exaggerating here. Every one of these trips that I've taken, I'm constantly taking note because I'm like, I have to share what I'm seeing with you all, because I got told this a long time ago, and it's something that continues to stick with me, that for you all, as you're listening to this, there are people out there that are less qualified, less talented, and overall less purposeful than you are, that are out doing phenomenal things. And as I'm going out and experiencing these things, that's always in my mind, because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw myself into the process, because I don't know what my life is going to look like, but I do know that by taking note, that by coming back in my own hero's journey and sharing what I'm seeing, sharing what I'm observing, I know that's going to not only increase my trajectory, but it's also going to increase the trajectory of you as our pod family. So 2 weeks ago, we got back from New York City. I had the chance to get involved with Red Bull BC1, which is a world breakdance competition. And so for me, I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and take the couple days, or a couple weeks rather, that I need, because the holidays were already underway. By the way, I hope you all had a phenomenal time with family. Hope you enjoyed your food. Hope you really centered yourself in the gratitude of what it is, not only to be a high-level individual, but what it is to be grateful. So as I'm looking at it now, here we go with episode 119. Who would have thought that a bunch of young, gritty, high-performing breakdancers competing in the heart of hip hop in New York City would have showed me something about the hero's journey and what it is to be a high level individual. Let's go. Mentorship Monday. Okay, so for that mark clip, we'll go ahead and start the pod in 3, 2, 1. Staten Island. I'm gonna continue to throw Wu-Tang in there, because Wu-Tang is for the kids and Wu-Tang is forever. All right, so rewind 2 weeks ago, I had the chance to take my family up to New York City, and it's something that, like, for me, with our family, my wife loves the city. There's something inside of her that really comes out, and something that is really enjoyable for us to have conversations about, because I think when you get out of your own element, when you get out of your comfort zone, you start to examine things in a much different way. And it's honestly something, a huge reason why I really, really love New York City, is because for those who have been there, you kind of understand, like, there's an energy about the city. And for me, I always equate that energy and that vibrancy to, like, people are out there just hustling. People are out there working their butts off to get to a point where they can navigate their purpose and what they need to do. Again, this is all just like speculation. I don't know if everyone who lives in New York City, if you're a listener right now and you're like, hey, I don't feel that way, obviously I'm not talking about you, but for me, it's the feeling that I get. So being in New York City obviously was a fantastic time. And for those of you who are parents, you know, and will be parents at some point, getting your kids in any sort of airplane is a task. Getting them across the country is a task of God's. Okay. So obviously we got there, and it was something that was so beneficial. But for me, I learned 3 things watching these young athletes compete against each other. I saw 3 things that I was like, wow, this is amazing. Because if you look at the roster of most of the people that were competing, they're young individuals, right? Probably 18 to 24. Maybe a little bit more, but 18 to 24. They're traveling the world in breakdance competitions. And some of them are Red Bull sponsored athletes, and others are looking to get their name out there. And it's something that as I was observing, and someone who observes everyone's behavior. I mean, it's how I've created my business of observing behavior, understanding the trajectory of what the person needs, and then reverse engineering back and helping them to get to that point and developing those systems and helping them to do that for themselves. That's what I do in my coaching programs. That's exactly what I do. Okay, so as I'm observing this, there were three things that I thought were extremely evident. And so the first one, as I'm looking at it, was community. I love infiltrating other communities because it not only it gets me out of my comfort zone, but it gets me into a place where I'm talking much less about my experiences, what I want to do. It's much less about me, and it's much more about us. Because as I was observing this, going to the different competitions, being around a lot of the different breakdance communities, it was actually really cool to see, by the way, because you have like the main stage where people are competing against one another. And I'm not fucking lying to you here. You have the main stage where people are competing against one another. And then you probably have like 3 or 4 other breakdance sessions of people that are just in circles, just enjoying the music, just expressing their art. And for those who have not gotten back to episode 118 with Irene Yang, I continue to think about what she had said, because for me, what I was observing with a lot of our very, very high level athletes is that they really love what they're doing. And that part is special, but she took it to another step. Again, if you have not listened to episode 118, please do yourself the favor. You don't have to pause this, but go back to the episode. I thought it was such a huge gem, because for her, what she was observing as their mental performance specialist was anything that they're doing is it's their artful expression of how they want to express themselves. So for me, as I was observing this, it's the first thing I thought of. Shout out to you, Irene. Like, wow, this is such a beautiful expression of their art. And who doesn't love dancing? Okay. And so we're in the heart of New York City, where they did a phenomenal job at not only centering in where the birthplace of hip hop was, but also just engaging the different communities. Because as you looked at some of the people who were competing and some of the people that were there was a wide array of diversity. That was the first thing that I thought was like, wow, this is amazing. Because for me, I'm going to keep going back to this. If you surround yourself with 5 gritty fucking people that spend most of their days just trying to get better, you're likely to become the 6th. And it's something that I continue to try to live by. It's something that I push a lot of my clients. And as listeners, it's something that I want you to be thinking about too. If you look at your community net right now, are they the 5 people, right? It doesn't have to be exactly 5, but you know what I'm getting at. Is your community, are those 5 people, the social 5, are they people who are going to increase your trajectory, or are they people who are merely going to keep you stuck? Those are questions that you have to ask yourself. Because as I was looking at it, as I was looking at the artful expression of just breakdance, just in general, one of the things that I found was, okay, let's look at grit. Let's look at the characteristics of grit. Courageous. Getting out in front of people and expressing any sort of art is a courageous act. I don't care what you say. Okay. That was the first thing. Conscientious. The types of things that people were doing with their creativity, with their bodies, with linking up their bodies to the sound of music. Like, to me, that was like, oh my God, it was such a cool thing to see. Third thing, perseverance. In order to get better, you have to persevere through the biggest barrier. And oftentimes the biggest barrier is going to be ourselves. Our fourth characteristic, resilience. Anyone who understands trying to get better at any sort of thing also understands how resilient you have to be when you need to get up and go do that thing, even though you might not be feeling the motivation or the willpower. That's resilience, is understanding that you have a purpose and a why, and forging ahead in a way where you might not know whether you'll be successful, but you do know that if you keep going, at some point, you will be able to get to the top of that metaphorical mountain of what success looks like for you. And the fifth one, passion. I don't know how any of these people doing this, traveling the world and competing against one another, I don't know how they can't be passionate. So everything that I saw from the standpoint of community, everything that I saw from the standpoint of grit was there, and I absolutely loved it. So number 2, here's the second thing that I learned. Go compete. Oh my God. For any listeners out there who have ever had the opportunity of knowing the Abeta family, and for those that don't, count your blessings, because this is something that we all got to work on. But also, like, I kind of want to be unapologetic about it. Like, that we are going to compete not only against you, but against one another tirelessly. There's definitely, obviously, with this past holiday that just passed, most people play a football game. For those that know, there have definitely been some times that myself and my siblings have gone after each other just because we love to compete. But bringing it back to this, I feel like competition is a special thing. Because if you're able to get into a mind frame of the idea of compete in everything that you do, it's a beautiful thing, because when you go out and compete, you get an opportunity to see how not only you stack up against other people, but you get an opportunity to see how you stack up when all of the resilience, the passion, all of the work that you've put in that given moment, what that looks like. To me, I feel like it is the best behavioral audit that you can do for yourself, is to go out and compete. And yes, you're going to be competing against others, depending on if you're navigating a health journey, business, like whatever that means for you. Like, the competition needs to be not only against yourself, but who you were yesterday, who you were a month ago, and who you were beyond. Because if you're working to increase the trajectory, you might not see it day to day, but if you stack yourself up month to month, year to year, the hope is that you're increasing the trajectory. And if you're not, this is a solid opportunity right here to pause this podcast and to get really, really gritty about why that's happening. Okay, so second one, go out and compete in everything that you do. Okay, which brings us to our third. I love this topic. I've told you I have something special. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this in a way that is not only storytelling, engaging, and funny, but also like hits you in your fucking heartbone. It's this third idea. Try to develop an artist level of petty. Yes, you heard me correct. The great ones are very, very petty. If you start to think about some of the athletes or business owners or people in the sphere of the world who have seen success, if you get them talking about some of the comments or some of the people that said that they couldn't do it, no, there's multiple stories that go with that. And what was funny for me is, like, obviously you have these young athletes, young dancers who have been competing against one another in all areas of the world. Some of them might be friends, but in the level of competition, you saw people going at each other. And I loved it, because for me, it validated number two, which was go out and compete. And three is like, you have to develop a healthy level of petty. Because it's not really about being an asshole. Again, let me be very clear. I'm not asking you to go be an asshole in order to be successful. I'm asking you to get to a point where you take some of the experiences that might not be favorable, things people say about you, things that you have heard yourself from mentors or parents or anyone who was in that position to lead you. There has to be, when you hear some sort of negativity or you sense some sort of negativity, there has to be a part of you that takes that personally. Because that's another level of your why and your purpose that you can keep in your arsenal, because there's going to be days as you're trying to increase your trajectory as a high level individual that you're just not going to feel it. These are the perfect moments where you hear about champions digging down deep, digging down somewhere where they had no idea where they got that from. Not only is that grit, but that's also like, hey, these are the messages that you have internalized in a way where you've actually used it for good. Sometimes some of the things that people say, some of the experiences that we've had, sometimes they can be extremely traumatic. I know for me, And I'm not going to share too much about this because, like I said, I want to develop this in a different episode in a way that is special for me and authentic to me. But I can tell you that there are people, there are phrases, there are messages that I've gotten over the course of my life that continue to drive me. I like to think about it in a way where it's like, that's a lot of negativity, but at the same time, I've been able to hijack it in a way where it actually pushes me. And I saw that in these young dancers and these young athletes. You develop an artist level of petty because it's not about being an asshole. It's about understanding the role of competition and understanding that some of the messages or things that you've gotten in your life are consistently driving you. And that's okay. It was a phenomenal experience as I'm looking back. I had some phenomenal dad moments. My daughter got locked in to some of the dancers. She got locked into the art of breakdancing. So also to be able to take her there too was extremely special. But one of the three things that I wanted to share with you all as I was just observing was, one, the object of community. If you surround yourself by 5 people you look up to, you're likely going to become the 6th at some point. The second one was going out and competing. Go compete. Go see how you stack up, not only against the competition, but see how you stack up to who you were a month ago. And the last one, be okay with developing a healthy level of petty. Because those messages, those things are going to drive you at some point. I know they do for me. Again, I'm not going to dive too much into this because I have a special episode that I'm still trying to figure out how to construct. Maybe on my next long flight, I'll take that time. But those are the 3 things that I thought were extremely special and something I wanted to share with you on this Mentorship Monday. As always, if there is something that really spoke to you, please do me the favor, screenshot it, tag us at Desi Abeda, tag us at I Made It Pod, and share it with the world. We're trying to go global here, okay? All right, let's go. Love y'all. See you in the next episode. Peace.